In this video, I'm going to use a Cognos Analytics dashboard to analyze my company's sales performance for the previous year. I'm going to try to spot any kind of anomalies, what went well and what didn't go so well. So here we go. I'm going to go into my content here and grab some data, a data set that someone has shared with me. Create a new dashboard from it and expose the fields here on the left hand side. So the first thing I want to do is, for example, take a look at all my sales per product line. So I can multi-select both the revenue as well as product line and simply grab them and drag them onto the canvas. From here, if I want to, I can arrange them a little bit to sort them. I can also grab the revenue and change the aggregation type to perhaps abbreviate. Okay, so now I have the numeric values that are represented a little bit better. Now, as you saw, I just dragged and dropped the fields right onto the canvas and I got a column chart. Well, in this one here, for example, I have country. So if I grab country and revenue again, I drag that in, and all of a sudden now in this case, I'm going to get a map. And I can also use all this as a filtering mechanism. So I can grab the branch region, and this will become a live filter for both my map as well as my bar chart. So if I'm interested in, for example, my Northern European sales numbers or South European, I can do that too. If I'm interested in one particular country, I can click on the map and then see the values here in my bar chart. All right. What would be interesting to see is instead of the product line, well, let's take a look at the product types themselves instead of the product line. So I'm going to grab a field here, product type, and replace product line with product type. Perhaps I'm not necessarily interested in all my product types, so what I can do is I can click on product type itself and go top bottom. Maybe I'm interested in my top 5, top 10, bottom 10, 5. So in my case here, I'm interested in my top 10 selling products. So I'm going to filter based on revenue and get only 10 product types in this case. So when I look at this revenue here, in this case, eyewear, yeah, it made a lot of money. But in terms of performance, did it do well? Did I hit my targets? I'd like to see a little bit more behind the scenes as to how well I did. As part of my fields here on the left hand side, I can see that I have both revenue as well as planned revenue, so to see whether or not I hit my target. So what I can do here is I can create a calculation that I'm going to call, in this case here, for example, goal. Well, revenue percentage of planned revenue. If I got it wrong, I can always switch it around if I'd like to. In my case here, yep, it's revenue percentage of planned revenue, and that's my goal target. Now, this bar chart here, let's take a look at it a little bit differently. I'd like to be able to see the profits that I've made, and as well as, well, let's take a look to see how well I did from a goal perspective. So I can see here that I have a goal as well as profit. So let's switch these two around here so I can see a little bit better how each products did in terms of goals and the size by the profits. All right. And we can make this a little bit bigger as well and rearrange my canvas to better fit. So I can see here pretty quickly that this circle here, this bubble here that represents, in this case here, eyewear, it hit 99% of the goal. If I want to, I can change the aggregation type here as well to show me just a little bit more formatting options and to see which ones did particularly well or perhaps not so well. Now remember how I had filtered based on my top 10 per revenue. So if we get rid of this one, you can see now all my products. So all the ones that did very well, so where I've hit 100% of my targets, and perhaps the ones where I didn't hit the target nearly as well as I should have. So for example, this one here for putters, or maybe here for first aid. Now I'm curious to see why is it that these here, for example, didn't do so well. Now let's go into a separate tab here to take a look, and then let's dive into some numbers. So I want to know some numbers specifically, so I'm going to grab a cross tab where I'm going to drag and drop a few fields here. So let's take a look at, say, product line, revenue, as well as quarter. So maybe curious to see, well, maybe it didn't do so well across the year. At the bottom here of the list of available slots that I have a color by slot. Now, it would be kind of interesting to be able to color code each one of these revenues by saying, well, how much money did I actually make off of this? How much profit did I earn? So I'm going to grab profit and color by each cell by the value of my profit. So now all of a sudden I get a cross tab with each cell representing the profit margins that I've hit. Now profit is good on high numbers is good, and red is not so good on this side. So let's take a look at our various different options here. So in my case here, I want to flip this around to say that green is good and red is not so good. Now by default we separate everything by buckets. Now we can rearrange these buckets and place them in various different orders. If we'd like to be able to remove some, we can. Now here you can see that the profits on golf equipment, for example, remember those putters that we had, you can see that it's actually quite reasonable. It's not all that bad, where the profit margin on these are actually pretty good. Now let's flip this around a little bit to see whether or not I can spot something else that would be interesting. So remember this goal calculation that we created previously? Let's use that as our mechanism to color. What I can do now is I can spot the various different areas of where things may be good or bad. All right, so based on the performance for my sales. So I'm going to rearrange these buckets here real quick to be able to show, maybe I only need a few of these to show each one of these buckets. All right, what I'd like to be able to do now is dive into each one of these product types. So let's bring in product types again into our visualization so we can see it just a little bit better. And if I realize that I haven't adjusted my buckets quite right, what I can do is that I can always go back in and change the size of each one of these buckets. So for example here, if I'm interested in only seeing things that are red below 80%, or maybe that's a little bit too harsh, what I can do is that I can move this down to being, for example, 83, which is the start of the ramp here, and maybe then change these around. Right. So once I'm happy with the positioning of each one of these buckets. Now what's interesting here is that once I've set up all the buckets, I can spot here pretty easily that for example the putting was 86% in Q1, 89%, but then take a look at this one, which is only 75% in Q4, which means that I've missed my number. And if I scroll down, I can probably see some other ones as well that where I've missed my number. So for example, the outdoor protection for my first aid, perhaps I didn't do as well as I would have hoped to be able to do, and I only hit 73% in this case here. So there you go. I created a new dashboard, brought in some information, took a look at the visualization. I spotted a few things that I wanted to know a little bit more detail on, created a new tab, and then in this second tab I dove into the numbers and figured out which one was actually causing the problem, where we should probably investigate it further.